What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 20 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got about an 18-minute video, so we're just going to jump right in. We're going to be picking up where we left off yesterday in episode 19, going up with our middle template here and building out the sides with the shape that we have from the lower side. And we're just going with the cut line again, and we're going two out. As long as you're following this pattern, it is literally impossible to make a mistake. And we're in pretty good shape. And it's not a super long video today because the next recording session that I have is actually going to be 47 minutes. And I may very well end up breaking that up into two episodes. Because I think if I go 47 minutes, that might be a little bit too much for one episode, and I don't necessarily want to go out that far. So that's more than likely what I'm going to do. But still, we're going to be getting some stuff done today, nonetheless. But we won't be finishing up the lower hull because this is just a tremendous amount of work to complete. And what else can I say? It's just going to take a little bit of time to complete this. So now that we've done the left side on this row, we're going to do, or excuse me, the right side. Now we're going to do the left side. Again, just going with the cut line. As long as we follow that, going two back, no mistakes can be made. And this is something I touched on yesterday. This is why, when I build these ships, I get people asking me, what are your blueprints? It's not necessarily that I'm working off of a blueprint. I'm really not. I just have I've begun to remember my patterns that I use. And this is basically the same pattern that I used for the lower hull of the Disco Era Enterprise. And as you start building ships on Minecraft and you get a little bit better at it and you start remembering your patterns, you'll be able to develop this skill as well. And it's just going to take a little bit of time um, to really develop that, because it took me quite a while to really identify this as something that I could use. And it was just really over a period of rebuilding the Enterprise 2009 Enterprise, and then the Enterprise A, and the Vengeance, getting to this point to be like, okay, well, these are a set of rules that I have to use when I'm building, and it's really worked out in my favor. You could see that with the Disco Era Enterprise and the Cerritos, and now the Enterprise D, because I'm actually getting very excited because I really think that now I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to do other ships, and it's not just about a Constitution class. We're doing different classes of ships that look vastly different. Um, and I really do. I think that the process that I'm using, it's definitely sound, where you can take these same rules that I use and apply them to different ship builds, and it'll work out. It really will. If you take the time to plan things out the way that we have in this tutorial. And it's not going to happen overnight. It can take a little bit of time, but eventually you will start to build up that wheelhouse of these different traits to use in your own build. And maybe at some point I might actually need to write all these rules that I have down. So I bring them up when they're relevant. And now, of course, thinking all of them off the top of my head, I can't think of everything off the top of my head. It comes to mind as I'm doing it. But that could be something that maybe I'll do down the road. But um, watching through this tutorial, we'll go through all of that. But nonetheless, I'm still very happy with how this is going so far, except that last row that we just added. I think we're gonna have to take that off because we're going just one too high on there, because technically this row right here, actually, I think this row right here, we're gonna be filling that in. So I don't think we're gonna be using those last two rows. But before we mess with that, let's get the rest of this filled in, and then we'll worry about that. But you can start to get a really good sense of how this cut's going to go, and it's starting to look like the Enterprise D, which is very exciting. I think that's one of the most rewarding things on Minecraft for me when I build these ships. Even if we can't necessarily do anything with them, I think it's very cool the fact that just that we're able to do this. Very cool. And Minecraft has some of the customization options that you really can't get in any other game. Even in Starship Evo, as much as I love that game, in a lot of ways it is very limited in comparison to Minecraft, even though you can fly the ships around and whatnot. It's actually one of the reasons why I've been kind of taking a break from Starship Evo, because I'm waiting for them to put more content out on the game. Um, but it's just one of those things. It's impressive at the same time, even though I'm kind of talking crap about them. But at the end of the day, there's only one guy that's working on Starship Evo, and the fact that he's been able to do all of that by himself, it's incredibly impressive. Whether he's had to outsource a couple of things here or there, that doesn't really matter. It's a beautiful game, but it's lacking some content. It really needs like a TLC for a variety of different things I won't get into today. Um, but it's just really to acknowledge. I'm bringing that up to acknowledge the fact of how good Minecraft really is, because it really does have a huge palette of different building items on this game. Even if it doesn't have the one thing I want them to add more than anything, a full range of colored half slabs. That's honestly maybe one of the only things that I can think of that I wish that they would add in this game, other than maybe making these objects that we're using able to fly around and use them and whatnot without it being a mod restricted to a certain map or whatnot. That would be very cool. But other than that, I love this game, and if you're just catching this channel for the first time, you've never built a ship, Enterprise D may not necessarily be the ship to start for you, but if you do decide to want to build it, I will show you all the steps on how to do it. Um, but nonetheless, shipbuilding on Minecraft is a heck of a lot of fun. I'd recommend it to anybody, especially for me. Sometimes work, life, whatever, it can get stressful, especially everything going on in the world. And shipbuilding is a great way to kind of get away from all that for a couple of hours, and it can help take your mind off things a little bit. And that's one of the things I do love about it. And also, it's very rewarding building out something that we ultimately love. In this case, it's the Enterprise D. And I have a lot of fond memories watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. Believe it or not, this was. I'm trying to remember if what I saw first. It was either one of the Shatner movies, or it could have very well have been Star Trek: The Next Generation. Was my very first exposure to Star Trek. Um, but when I was younger, my parents they had gotten divorced, and I only saw my dad every other weekend. But that became our thing. We'd watch Star Trek, and every week, we'd watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. As I became older, um, they'd have Star Trek playing during the weeks, and every single day after school, I'd watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I've got a lot of fond memories of this show, and this is one of the reasons why I've been taking my time to build this thing out, because I want to do it justice. I think out of all the ships that I've done so far, my two favorite that have the most meaning for me is the Enterprise A and the Enterprise D, without a doubt. Uh, and you can definitely see that by the care I put in both those builds so far. But no, this is going to be a lot of fun, I think, so far. Even though it's ended up being a lot of work, I actually I surprised myself with this build, because when I was still working on the Cerritos, and even when I was on the Disco Era Enterprise, when I was thinking that the Enterprise D is going to happen, um, I kept saying that I was afraid of it because I didn't know how the build was going to go, and I surprised myself. There were one or two areas I wasn't ultimately happy with, but it's come out great so far. Anyway, I want to get a little bit what I got going on here. Obviously, we don't have a bottom under this side here, but looking at it from the side here, this is pretty much spot on how this underside is going to have to be. Anything going back, this is pretty much going to be flat. So when you think about it, a lot of our outside of the lower hull is pretty much done at this point. She's really looking good. One of the next things we're going to have to do here is a lip of half slabs going all the way around the back. Now I'm going to show you one of the things that I do to cheat to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a builder block of blue going along the cut line on the bottom row here, going all the way around. And the reason I'm doing this is so that it's a little bit easier to place my half slabs down. I don't think I've necessarily shown this too much when I've done other tutorials. If I have, well, then you saw it. If you haven't, this is comes in handy. And even though it might be a little bit of work to do it because you're pretty much repeating your work twice, I feel that it makes it a little bit easier at the same time. And this is just my own preference. But everywhere I'm putting half slabs or these full blocks right now, directly underneath them is going to be a half slab. So if you want to skip that process with this blue block, or builder block as you call it, go for it. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. We're going to be building this going all the way up to the two sides where we had half slabs to make that connect with each the right side and the left side. So this would be the left side, so we'll be bringing it right up to that one, and the same thing on the right. So everywhere that we just placed a blue block, we're going to be doing a half slab. And we'll be able to see how much easier that is now that we actually have something to snap onto. Makes this process so much easier. And if we need to, we can always come back and get rid of the blue blocks. But it's not necessarily going to mess up our build. Um, not in the least, not right now. And matter of fact, I don't even think I end up deleting them myself. I'm pretty sure they're still on my ship as of right now. But could always just cover them up or delete them after we put in the half slabs. But if you do decide to delete them, just be careful that you're not deleting the outer layer of your ship. That is very important. Just take your time with it. It's not a rush. We've got all the time in the world to build this thing. I've been working on the Enterprise D for over 3 months so far, and I'm still not done with it. And it's going to take however long it takes to finish it. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. The way I look at it is that I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And so far, everybody's been really enjoying the tutorials for the Enterprise D. So I might as well deliver as much as I possibly can and have as much fun with it as I can. Um, and that's just kind of how I feel about it. So anyway, this, I believe, not this top row here, but the second row here that's kind of in line with the half slab. I believe this is the row that we're going to be filling in. Yeah. So we're going to be filling this in going all the way back. This is going to be our bottom. And I'm not going to do all of this live because this is going to get a little repetitive. So I'm only going to do a section of it. But you really, it's lining up with this row of half slabs where it's sticking out a little bit. And so if your build, if it's going up a little bit too high or it's a little bit too low, then that means you're snapping on either the top row here or the bottom row. So you need to move it down so this way there's just a little bit of a lip here coming on the side of the half slab, and then you're in good shape. And we're just going to fill all of this in. So this way, when I'm done, and we're going to use a little bit of editing magic here in just a moment, and we're just going to snap, and this whole bottom is going to be filled in, just like that. So now that that is done, now we can move on and get some of our layering done on the top side of our hull where there's still a little bit of a gap. Basically, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of take my time with this and just do 2 rows going in towards the neck, and I'm going with the current pattern that we have just up by 1. Remember, this is one of the things I've talked about. Use the patterns that you got, because if everything matches up, then in my opinion anyway, it's going to start to look a little bit better because it feels more mathematically sound. And that's something that kind of feels like how these ships should look to me. They should be very nice and neat. And just my opinion, I think when you do that, you get a much cleaner build when everything lines up for the most part. As we were going through the net or the lower hull here, there were 1 or 2 exceptions that we made, and there were even 1 or 2 exceptions that we made with the neck. But I'd say about 98% of it, it all matches up, and it looks fantastic at the same time. We're looking pretty good here. I've been having a few people comment on the next ship that they want me to build, and again, I'm not really I don't feel comfortable to say 100% for sure what the next ship on Minecraft's going to be, because we've got a lot of work to do on the Enterprise D, but we're at a point that we can at least talk about it, and it could very well at this point end up being Voyager. I've been having a lot of people ask for that ship, and I think that ship will be a lot of fun to do. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens by the end of this build, where everybody's at. But if that's the ship you want to see me do, if you want to see me do a tutorial of Voyager, drop a comment below. Let me know in the comment section. I'd definitely love to hear from you, even if it's a different ship, or even if it's just something nerd related. You never know. If I get enough people asking for it, I might just do a tutorial for it. And yeah, just kind of going from there, because I'm definitely going to be keeping these tutorials going. I'm having a blast doing them, and having a blast building these ships. This is the most time I've spent on Minecraft since I've gotten the game, really. I mean, because I talked a little bit about this in the past, that before, I'd only get on maybe a couple of times a year. I'd build a ship, and I'd kind of just be creatively done after that, and then I'd get off maybe for like a couple of months, maybe 6 months. I think the most time I took off was like a year. If you go back and watch my earliest videos on YouTube, you can kind of get a good gauge of how many breaks I took in between those builds. Um, but a lot of that had to do is that I really just didn't have a lot of inspiration on what direction to go in. So those of you that take the time to drop your suggestions, it really actually does mean a lot, because it gives me inspiration on what the next ship's going to be, and it also gives me motivation to actually get on and build these ships. And I can't thank everybody enough just for the time they take just to give me some recommendations on ships to build on here, because you know it's really it's giving me a reason to get on and play the game. Um, Minecraft is probably, out of all the games that I play between my Xbox and my computer, I think Minecraft is probably the number one at this point. Even when I take little breaks in between here and there, because I still take breaks, and I feel that that's important, that you take a break while you're building, during your builds, whether it's a short break or a long break, because eventually you are going to get burnt out from the building, or you're going to get frustrated because something's not going your way, or whatever the reason may be. Taking breaks are good, but still, I love the shipbuilding on here. It's a lot of fun, and this is definitely going to continue. Is kind of where I'm getting at. But we're looking pretty good right now. Um, you can see I'm being kind of conservative about what I got going on. I'm only going in by 2, and one of the reasons for that is because I'm not necessarily sure at this point how all of this is going to blend in with the neck. So I'm just kind of being a little conservative about it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If we wanted to add another row to this and make it 3 wide, we could easily do that, and it wouldn't impede the build at all. But really, the important thing at this point is to get something down and see how it looks, because then we can kind of gauge it with the rest of the ship and see what it needs and what we need to do. Because this is something else I've talked about too. That this is really, uh, I'm excited to show this stuff for the Enterprise D, because my other ships that I've done tutorials for, including the Cerritos to a degree, um, you got the benefit of seeing me build these. You got the benefit of me building these ships beforehand, and pretty much knowing how it's going to go. So you got pretty much a perfect tutorial. I think there may be 1 or 2 things with when we did the discovery that I might have made minor changes on, but for the most part, really didn't make any changes. I built it out, and that's kind of what it stayed with. With the Enterprise D, there are going to be some things that we do ultimately change, and that's just kind of the way it's going to be with shipbuilding, especially when you're building something from scratch. Ultimately, it's never always going to come out perfect. And anybody that says that they can build something for the first time perfectly without making a mistake, they're usually full of it, and they don't want to just admit that they're like everybody else, and that you can easily make mistakes, or maybe it didn't come out the way that you wanted it to the first time. It's a building process, pun intended. So what I'm getting at is that sometimes, again, you probably get tired of me saying this. You just got to throw something down, see how it looks, and if it looks right, then that's what we'll go with. But so far, I'm definitely liking what we got going on with the lower hull. It's just a matter of making these 2 cuts that we have now match up with the neck. But we will get there. We really don't have that much to do at this point. But I'd rather take my time with it and do it right. So we got one more row to add on this side. And we were rocking this episode. We're getting a little bit done, but we're kind of winding down too. We got about 3 minutes left in today's episode. Time definitely flies. But the way that this is all matching up so far looks pretty good. Pretty happy with the progress that we're making on this thing. Still have to rework the very front of the neck. The sides and this back piece here look fantastic. I'm very happy with how this looks. I think the only thing I'm not happy with is that if you look, it kind of goes in like an L shape as it goes to each row. I'm not happy with that per se. The shape of it looks great, but like I see that double block line going in, and it looks like an L to me. I might end up fixing that maybe with like a gray block or something to kind of like cover it up. But Other than that, we are going to have to go back and rework the front of the neck here to make it match up with how it looks in the teaser trailer, uh, or the full teaser trailer for the Enterprise D. And but we'll get there. You know, we got a lot of stuff to do. We still even got to close in the saucer section. We got to build out the pylons and the nacelles and then the deflector dish. But yeah, we're looking pretty good so far. But I think that's going to wrap us up today. If you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Everybody takes the time to watch these episodes. You all are awesome. You know who you are. Thank you so much. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when my new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. And of course, if you have any questions, or just want to drop in and say hey, be sure to drop a comment below. I'm usually pretty responsive in the comments section. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe weekend. And for those of you in the States, happy 4th of July. And I'll catch you on the next week's episode.